Okay, last day for preps, but you have questions. I'm going to be answering questions over the next 2 hours on WCNC Plus. Download it right now. I'll see you there. We'll get to as many as we can across 2 hours. But Majestic, real quick.
I-485, a big accident right here. This is going to be the inner loop where 3 lanes are currently blocked near Prosperity Church Road. We'll have more on this coming up on WCNC Plus.
Good morning, happy Friday, and thanks for joining us on WCNC Plus at 7. I'm Megan Bragg, in for Ben Thompson.
And I'm Lisa Washington. We're going to start things off with a check of your forecast with that impending winter storm headed our way. Chris is standing by with what we need to know.
Millions of people are impacted by this. Look at how much of Texas is covered in this color. That is a winter storm warning. Meanwhile, this purple, we don't even have a key for it because it's so rare. It's through parts of Mississippi, even up into Tennessee, and there's a little sliver right here in southeastern Arkansas, northeastern Louisiana that we have an ice storm warning. And that's also going to bring attention to us. Right now, we're under a winter storm watch. Once you're 24 to 36 hours within the event, the National Weather Service is going to make one of 2 calls for this event. Either we get this, the winter storm warning, or we get this, the ice storm warning. I think a select few of us could be under an ice storm warning where freezing rain is the main jam. But since we have so much precipitation types going on for this event, there's a good chance that we're under a winter storm warning. So it just depends on what they decide. But I'm letting you know, you've been warned for regardless. Ice is ice. Sleet is ice. Snow, technically ice. And then freezing rain is the iciest of them all. So over the next 3 days, you have one day that is okay to do anything outside. We have a little bit of rain. It's barely coming down south of I-85 this morning, and then it'll start to fizzle out. Might see a glimmer of sunshine for the afternoon, but then by tomorrow morning, you're good. Maybe a little bit of snow in the mountains, but then it's hour by hour through the afternoon that you're running out of time. Once you get to the evening, things are getting really dicey. Once you get to Sunday morning, don't be on the roads. It's going to be a ghost town out there on the roads, I guarantee, because a lot of people are now starting to take this seriously. And if you're watching us on WCNC Plus, I hope you're doing the same. Which, by the way, on and off, we were saying over on WCNC Charlotte, I'm going to be answering your questions throughout the morning. So that's going to be coming up here shortly. So specific questions, if you've been reaching out to us meteorologists, haven't been able to get to you, this is your opportunity to write in. And I'll show you how to do that here shortly. Winter precipitation types. This is very important. I do think you could briefly see snow, but this is mainly a sleet and freezing rain event, especially for the Charlotte area. Sleet, what is it? And I'm giving a shout out to my wife because I love this. I was quizzing people because I realized a lot of people don't really know what sleet is. And she said, sleet is frozen precipitation that hits the ground as a frozen precip, but then freezing rain freezes at the surface. That's perfect. So this is just frozen ice pellets hitting the ground, and then freezing rain is rain that freezes once it makes contact with that freezing surface. We're first seeing sleet. Sleet looks to be 1 to 3 inches. That's what we've been calling over the last few days. More of a sleet snow scenario really north of Taylorsville, even though I do think you will have some snow mixing in early on. And then we have less sleet and more freezing rain down towards the south. All of us have a chance at least for 1/10 of an inch to 1/4 inch of ice. At that point, things are problematic. It is tough to drive, and that's not even factoring in the layer of ice and sleet that you have below that. So you need to avoid your Sunday travel. If you're home safe, that's all we're trying to get you to do. Today, I'm trying to get you to be prepared. I've been trying all week long. Now I just want you to stay safe until things really start to improve through your Monday heading into Tuesday. But Sunday is out of the question, and some of us are going to be losing power because of how much ice is coming down with this. Looking at some of our Futurecast totals, I'm running this blind. This just came in. I want to see what this is showing. This is showing up to Sunday morning that we could have upwards to about 1/10 of an inch at that point of some freezing rain. I think it's at that point where things are starting to take over before it really starts to amount to something. Sleet to freezing rain is the scenario, and the reason why I made this is because I really want to show you a visual of what's going to be happening at the surface. These little orbs that I made, of course, it's not visibly accurate. There'll be a lot more tiny guys, but this is sleet, where we have sleet up to about 1 to 3 inches. That sleet is going to have little grooves and spaces in between. So once we have freezing rain, so we have up to 1/4 to 1/2 inch, that looks to be the norm, that will form on top of all this, but it also will have a chance to hit the grooves in between. So you're going to have this porous layer of ice that could be 1 to 3 inches thick on top of additional ice that's forming. That's awful. That's going to add more weight. That's going to bring down more branches potentially as it's sticking in there, and also power outages. And now it's time to go hour by hour what we can expect. Saturday morning, as I mentioned, you are good, besides seeing a little bit of snow up in the mountains. I'm a little concerned that we're going to see freezing temperatures most of the day, and then we see our signs of snow. Yes, snow lovers, I have some hope for you Saturday afternoon. Between 2 and 6 o'clock, that's where I want you to start being off the roads. And the only reason why I'm giving a little buffer is some people have things to do. Things get really bad once you head into the evening, because at this point, we're having accumulating sleet and snow, especially north of I-40. So if you're going to see snow, and Charlotte is included, it's really mid to late afternoon. I'm calling between 2 and 6 o'clock where you could see it. Outside of that, it starts to turn over to sleet. Sleet is the main name of the game through the evening, through the overnight, heading into your Sunday, and then it's replaced by freezing rain, where you have that scenario that it's freezing on top. It's at this point that freezing rain takes over for the morning into the afternoon. So I think at one point, some areas are going to exponentially see their power start to decrease, to go out, where we're going to have widespread power outages heading into the afternoon. So you need to have everything charged up beforehand. So you're good Saturday night. It's by Sunday morning in the afternoon, things change on you. It could be a changeover to just plain rain before it freezes back over on the backside. So that's everything you need to know for the timing. Again, today and tomorrow morning is your last hours to stay prepared, and please take this one seriously and don't challenge the road conditions until it's safe otherwise. All right, let's get right over to Majestic. We actually ended WCNC traffic alerts.
Traffic alert for this big accident right here. This is going to be on I-485 near mile marker 26. This is north of Uptown near Prosperity Church Road. You can see lots of emergency responders are there on scene. They have cones blocking off 3 lanes right now. So as you can see, cars are moving. They're just moving very, very slowly, and those backups are becoming quite significant at this point. Again, I-485, this is what we're seeing as we're looking north of Uptown. This is where it is right here on my my map. The delays are ongoing. 3 lanes closed, approaching Mallard Creek Road. So continuing to follow that for you. Again, this is a live camera look. This is why we are traffic alert for you this morning, because it is going to be a mess. Honestly, there's no great get around for this. So I would suggest making sure you put where you need to go onto your GPS to try to find your best alternate route, just kind of depending on where you're coming in from today. There it is again, a crash on I-485 at exit 26, Prosperity Ridge Road. Once we zoom it out, we're not seeing any big concerns across Uptown, but another thing I want to highlight is a secondary crash right here. We'll zoom it in. We're seeing delays in both ways. It's on South Boulevard at Sweden Road, and we do have a picture of that coming into our inbox. Multiple cars involved. It is going to be impacting all directions. It's right in the middle of the intersection, so keep this one in mind. We'll highlight a couple of other things that I'm watching for you very carefully, all coming up for you soon. Guys.
All right, Majestic, thanks so much for that. 7:07 now, and right now the Carolinas is bracing for one of the biggest winter storms it's seen in decades.
Governor Josh Stein speaking to all of North Carolina, declaring a state of emergency and urging everyone to take the threat of this weekend's winter storm seriously.
At this time, our greatest concerns are potential power outages and road safety over the coming days. Ice accumulation may lead to power outages, and we recommend everyone keep their devices charged, have a flashlight and battery-operated radio on hand, and think about what you may need to stay warm and fed if you lose power.
Now, we do continue to urge folks in the area to stay off the roads this weekend. However, we know that situations happen that may require you to get behind the wheel.
Now, before things get too hectic, WCNC Charlotte's Richard DeVane joins us live this morning. He's in Northwest Charlotte near 485 and Harris Boulevard to share how you can prepare ahead of the storm. Richard.
Yeah, Lisa, good morning to you. Good morning, Megan. Good Friday morning, everyone. As we've told you before, we don't want you taking to the road, but if you have to, it's important that your car is protected because you need to have it winterized because these temperatures, I should say, are falling and things are going to get quite bad on the roads. Ice, snow can turn a minor issue into a major emergency, especially for those drivers who might be caught on the road this weekend. Mechanics are recommending checking your battery first since cold weather can cause weak batteries to fail without warning. Tire safety, vitally important. Make sure tires are properly inflated and have enough tread to maintain traction on the roads as they get slicker. Worn tires can increase the risk of sliding or losing control altogether. Drivers need to also check your antifreeze, your fluid levels. Make sure that your windshield wipers and washer fluids have that antifreeze that is designed for freezing temperatures. And we want you to have at least a half a tank of gas in your car, at least a half a tank if you can. That'll help prevent fuel lines from freezing over, and it also provide heat if you become stranded. Emergency kits, another thing everyone needs to have. That means blankets, extra water, and things like that in your car in case you have to use them, because your car can become a place where you can actually recharge your batteries in the case of power outages in your home. Also have some non-perishable snacks. Taking a few minutes now to winterize your car can help keep you safe as this weather turns dangerous.
Cars in general just don't like cold temperatures. Anytime temperatures drop really low like that, water pumps, radiators, radiator hoses, things of that nature are gonna leak and gonna break. Anything that can potentially be more fragile when it's cold outside or more brittle when it's cold outside is definitely going to be that way in colder temperatures.
See, the tire pressure lights on the dash, sometimes people ignore those and think, okay, there's not really a problem, but there really is. So if you're going down the road and you're having a tire issue, you'll end up on the side of the road. So definitely don't ignore those tire inflation warnings.
Yeah, so all of those are important notes. And the good news that if you have time today, maybe run by your area mechanic and check. They say it take you 15-20 minutes to check on especially your tires right away, your fluid levels, as well as that battery. So in the extreme emergency where you have to get on the road, at least you know your car is best prepared as possible. We're right here in Northwest Charlotte. This is Richard DeVane. We'll send it back to you. Be
All right, thank you so much, Richard. If you're planning on using public transit this weekend, listen up. CAT's Gold Line service is suspended Saturday and Sunday. CAT says all other operations will continue as normal as long as conditions allow. The transit system is monitoring the weather and urges users to stay informed. For updates, you can download the Cats Pass app for alerts and detours. And remember, be careful boarding and exiting buses during icy conditions.
7:11, and right now we are not seeing many flights impacted. At last check, there were 5 delays and 8 cancellations at Charlotte Douglas. But do keep an eye on your flight status if you have a flight scheduled. Thursday, Charlotte Douglas had 1 cancellation and 132 delays. For those looking to escape the cold, the winter weather will create major impacts at the airport as well as airports across the country. Take a look at this map. This shows just how widespread those disruptions will be. You can see dozens of airports where American Airlines is issuing travel alerts from New Mexico to Washington, D.C. Now, to help passengers, American is waiving the fees to change your flight. If you are booked in basic economy, you can only choose from basic economy inventory, not another class. Canceled and delayed flights may qualify for a refund.
For the second year in a row, an unhoused person was found dead during the annual Mecklenburg County point-in-time count, the federally required annual count of the unhoused population. Officials say while the number of people experiencing homelessness is growing, affordable housing isn't. And now this weekend's storm shows the need for federal funding for shelter space. But for now, they're depending on city donations to help.
Once this storm hits, a sleeping bag is almost like a piece of paper towel because when it rains, that sleeping bag isn't good anymore. So they need more. Most people can't afford market rate rent. Most people don't make 3 times the cost of rent. So they're unable to maintain their housing.
Organizations like Block Love, Roof Above, and Hearts for the Invisible are all taking donations. Each group is requesting blankets, sleeping bags, gloves, socks, and thermal underwear topping the list. Do check with each group's Amazon wish list or social media pages for a full look at how you can help.
In his first public testimony before Congress, former special counsel Jack Smith defended his investigation into President Trump. We'll have an insight next. The time is now 7:15, declaring he won't be intimidated. Former special counsel Jack Smith defended his investigation into President Trump in his first public testimony before Congress. Republicans say the probe was politically driven, leading to raised voices and angry clashes. NBC's Alice Barr has details from Washington.
In a sometimes combative hearing on Capitol Hill, former special counsel Jack Smith standing by his past investigations into President Trump.
Our investigation developed proof beyond a reasonable doubt that President Trump engaged in criminal activity.
The 2 federal cases on the president's handling of classified documents and interference in the 2020 election results, both scrapped before he re-entered the White House. But Republican anger over what they believe was unfair targeting continues.
It was always about politics. And to get President Trump, they were willing to do just about anything.
Democrats rejecting that.
For us, it's all about the rule of law and who's going to stand by the rule of law and who's going to oppose it.
While on social media, President Trump called Smith deranged and said, quote, hopefully the Attorney General is looking at what he's done.
Do you believe that President Trump's Department of Justice will find some way to indict you?
I believe that they will do everything in their power to do that because they've been ordered to by the president.
Smith adding,
I will not be intimidated.
Republicans also accuse Smith of spying on GOP lawmakers for seeking their phone records.
The egregious abuse of power.
Smith said the records that did not include content of calls were necessary to determine the president's contacts during allegations he sought to delay the January 6th election certification.
My office didn't spy on anyone.
Police officers injured defending the Capitol on January 6th were in the room and visibly frustrated throughout the hearing. Those police officers have also spoken out against President Trump's decision to pardon roughly 1,500 people charged in the January 6th Capitol riot. Smith warned that those convicted of assaulting police officers that day are dangerous to their community. In Washington, Alice Barr, NBC News.
Helicopter flights will be permanently banned near Ronald Reagan Washington National Airport in Virginia.
The Federal Aviation Administration Thursday announcement comes close to a year since a deadly mid-air crash near the airport in Washington, D.C. The FAA said airspace restrictions are necessary to mitigate the potential for mid-air collisions near that airport. Last December, the U.S. government admitted to failures by the pilots of the Black Hawk helicopter and an air controller at the airport. The new rules take effect today.
Plain and simple, the weather system that we're worried about is way out here and it will flourish through Texas. But listen to the birds. The birds are already reacting. They know something's coming. More on migration patterns and how these beings in nature are almost better weather forecasters than us. right, welcome back, everybody. So listen to the birds. What's crazy about nature is that a lot of these birds especially, I actually did a weather IQ on how animals react to weather systems. Birds have a really acute sense of changes in pressure. Lower pressure usually leads to inclement weather, where sometimes they actually will ride around low pressure systems as strong as a hurricane to get around it. They know something is coming. And our main weather event hasn't technically really even formed into a winter storm. It's all this moisture that's going to meet this colder air in northern Texas. So it's right in this vicinity that we're going to pick up our winter storm status later on today, through the overnight, and then eventually it reaches our doorstep. Well, I think it's really interesting. I was talking to my neighbor yesterday, and he was getting out a big bucket of birdseed. I was like, what are you doing? I was like, have you noticed how many birds are out there? There was a field of robins in our backyard, because the reason why, they sense something is coming, so they're actively trying to eat, because they're likely going to have to hunker down for a little bit, because they know that some sort of storm is out there. So hopefully everyone is listening to the birds and listening to me, because eventually we're going to have a widespread weather system that could be really tumultuous. And I can actually show you something. This is really cool. It's called Birdcast. This was yesterday evening. Notice that the system is coming. It's over here. We actually had 6.8 million birds in flight because they're trying to get away from this approaching system, where we're going to see the top of the low pressure system, the worst of the weather, really start to develop right here around Iowa, over to Missouri, and the northern parts of Texas. This is where the storm is beginning, and we're already seeing after the sun set that the birds are reacting to this. So if you don't want to listen to me, listen to the birds. They know. So let's get right to it. So I want to talk more about the timing and the totals. The reason what makes this such a complex forecast for us here is that we're majority seeing a ice event in two different forms. You have that freezing rain, but then you also have the sleet that's a precursor. And I've been really talking about this all morning in a more technical meteorological term, where I was saying that, hey, you could have these little balls of ice that could form, and then eventually the freezing rain rolls in. But Brad made this, so I have to give him a shout out, because this is awesome. And who doesn't love a good donut, right? Well, if you think about this event, sleet is mainly like the little sprinkle balls that you throw on here. They can bounce over here, they accumulate eventually, but freezing rain is like a glazed donut. That glaze coats everything. So we could be going from this with little tiny balls of ice that eventually are going to be stuck to the ground from that gooey glaze. Keep that in mind. Stay alert. Now through tomorrow morning is your time to get things done. But Majestic has a big backup that you need to know before you head out the door.
All right, good morning, everyone. We are still traffic alert, although we are seeing some really big improvements, so we could probably drop this here soon. This is going to be I-45 mile marker 26 near Prosperity Church Road. That's where we just earlier had a significant delay. 3 lanes blocked off. You can still see the crash out there. A couple emergency responders still on scene, but if you're just waking up and turning on the stream, it looks much better than it did just about 5 minutes ago. Left lane still, actually they're not closed anymore. They're actually opening up, but they were closed at this point. This is going to be approaching Mallard Creek Road. Again, this is a live camera look, looking much better than what we did just previously see. Here's a picture of it. You can see that arrow pointing at it. This is why we were traffic alert for you this morning, because of I-45 and the impacts that we saw right there. That's going to be the biggest thing you need to know. It is clearing out really nicely, but there are still some delays. It is the inner loop of I-45. We're going to have another update and let you know about a few other crashes for your Friday morning commute that you need to know about.
All right, we'll be right back with more on that upcoming winter weather storm after the break.
It's a cooler day, slight chance for rain to start off, but then already thicker clouds. We might see a glimmer of sunshine, but then by tomorrow afternoon, snow lovers, you do have a chance to see snow briefly. This is not a change in the forecast. This is just that you could see snow mixing with sleet before it changes over to all sleet in Charlotte by the end of your Saturday afternoon, and then a snow sleet mix further off towards the north. So it's really 2 to 6, I think, is your opportunity to see the snowflakes, get the kids out at that point, and then we're right back inside because we have accumulating sleet, and sleet is literally just frozen precipitation accumulating on the ground like a harder snowflake, and then eventually this changes over to freezing rain. So freezing rain, freezing on contact with everything. That means we're picking up our power outages through the morning, heading into the afternoon. Stay weather alert. This event will be done by the evening, but ice remains on the ground heading into Monday morning. All right, Majestic, what's going on this morning?
Good Friday morning, everyone. We've been following a big crash in I-485, but thankfully they just really cleared it. Looks like one lane is currently blocked, though. This is going to be north of Uptown, out by mile marker 26 near Prosperity Church Road. Keep that one in mind, but again, it looks much better than it just did. A handful of ongoing crashes for our early Friday morning commute. One that I want you to know about is right here. A lane is blocked on South Boulevard at Sweden Road. Here's the crash, and it's going to impact all directions.
Thanks for streaming live on WCNC Plus at 7:30 on this Friday morning. I'm Lisa Washington.
And I'm Megan Bragg, in for Ben Thompson. We're going to send it right over to Chris Mulcahy because he's keeping track of these updates for this winter storm. Chris?
Yeah, I said and I promised at 4:30 at the top of every single one of my weather hits, and that include on WCNC and here on WCNC Plus, that I'm going to continue to repeat myself to show you the timing of this system. Because for the first time, I'll let you know the changes that we have. Before, we was like, hey, this looks to be a pretty bad ice storm. Oh, wow, this could be a historic ice storm. Yesterday, it was like, okay, maybe a little more sleet, but still ice. Now, we combined everything. This looks to be a historic ice storm because of sleet with freezing rain on top of that. We actually went back with Larry Sprinkle, and we're going to do it again at 8:30 here on WCNC Plus, of the worst ice storms to happen across the Charlotte area in history. They date back all the way to 1968, 1978. Then we also had 1996, 2002, 2016, and then the 1996 is the one I think that I excluded there. This is all going to be on that list. I think this is going to be one of the 3 worst ice storms that we've had in Charlotte history because of the impact. So check this out. I think we're dealing with a lot of power outages because of what we see later on tomorrow. First off, you're putting down 1 to 3 inches of sleet. I think Charlotte a little bit closer to maybe 1 to 1.5 inches looks to be the range, and we see more to the north that could even mix in a little bit of snow. But the worst part of this forecast is our freezing rain potential. We could see upwards to about 1/2 inch of ice. That is crippling. At that point, that's coating the power lines. That's bringing down a lot more tree branches. So there will be power outages. I think it's going to be luck of the draw where the heaviest freezing rain is going to set up. So that brings me up to my next point. When can you expect it? Well, first off, our first signs of freezing rain, where we start to see at least 1/10 to 1/4 inch, arrives as early as Sunday morning up to around sunrise. After that, we're seeing some big changes. But before I get to your futurecast, I want to show you the cause of concern that I have. If we have 1 to 3 inches of sleet, even 1 inch of sleet, we're also going to have plain freezing rain on top. And to explain this a little bit more, sleet literally is those little ice pellets that can add up just like snow. But there's little grooves in between. So that freezing rain is going to freeze on contact, but it's also going to hit the little grooves. So you're going to have this porous thing of ice up to 1 to 3 inches thick, adding another 1/4 to 1/2 inch on top of it. Sleet mainly affects the ground. This is an awful road setup, but the freezing rain is what's going to impact above our heads. That's going to be the tree branches and also the power lines. And one thing that we're overlooking, we have had 2 significant droughts over the last year. So there's some weaker tops of the trees and branches than you realize because the lack of water that we've had. That's going to bring down more branches than I think a lot of us are realizing. Okay, so that's the general scenario. Let's get right to our futurecast. First today though, 50 degrees. Cloudy sky, chance for a little bit of rain, and then we're going to really see everything start to hit the fan by tomorrow afternoon. But we have plenty of opportunity in the near term before really things start to change on us. But let's start right here around 3 o'clock. The reason why I do this is because I think that we're precipitation free through the entirety of tomorrow morning. We see signs of snow working its way in. Oh, snow. Well, I thought you guys said it wasn't going to be snow. Well, I said the main event wasn't going to be snow. This is, I think, the only big change that I'm really seeing here is you have a chance for a little bit of snow. I was saying this yesterday. A lot of people at JT schools is like, are we going to see snow? And I said, maybe for an hour, because it's this hour, I think, really anywhere between about 2 and 6 that we're seeing snow that eventually I think is going to change over to sleet, especially along the I-85 corridor. And then that snow sleet mix remains along I-40 heading into the early evening. And then it's all sleet, all ice pellets moving forward through the rest of your Saturday evening, and eventually that sleet is going to take over. So snow to sleet, sleet takes over. Check box number 1. Sleet is also going to encounter a little bit drier air, but that's not necessarily helpful, but you're still going to have moisture in the air that's still going to be almost like freezing fog and freezing mist. So it's not like we have a dry period here. This sleet window, I think, is going to close right around sunrise for some of us, but sleet remains before it changes over to all rain. So you're talking about a noisy event as far as the sound for those little ice pellets before it changes over to the sound of rain. When you hear the sound of rain, that is not a good thing, because at that point, every raindrop is not just rain. It's freezing rain that's freezing on contact to things above, and at that point, you have a chance for power outages. I think you might see some sporadic ones before you get to that point, but through your Sunday morning into the afternoon, this is not a light freezing rain. We actually have a chance for a lot of moisture or even a moderate to heavy freezing rain at times. So I think it's through the morning into the afternoon, that's where most of the power outage is going to be. So what are you going to do? Well, be prepared now. And then through tomorrow morning, charge the devices, do the things you need like the dishwasher, run the dishes, wash all the clothes that you need, anything you need power for. And today you still might be able to do it. Get as many chargers as you can. I have a bunch of just wireless chargers. You need to do that as much as possible. You can also use your car. Get out all the blankets. I made fun of my wife for the amount of blankets that we have, and now she gets to flex as I have to go up in the attic and get all the blankets I tried to hide away, because you might need them all if you lose power, because it could last for over a week depending. This rain event, freezing rain event, will start to wind down, because what happens is latent heat is released during the freezing process, and that's a fancy weather term for, hey, heat's added back to the atmosphere that can warm temperatures back to freezing. So that's going to limit it by the end of the event, but it'll be plain rain at like 34 degrees, and that's going to freeze back over. So I've been mentioning this, and since Tuesday, which is bold, that there's no school with this type of event. So don't expect school on Monday. We'll see what happens after that, because you just have plain old freezing temperatures and not a good setup. So for the time being, we're under a winter storm watch that'll be upgraded to either an ice storm warning or a winter storm warning. I think over the next 6 hours. It usually comes anywhere from 24 to 36 hours before the event. Okay. Next time I'm up here, we're going to be answering some of your weather questions, but then also I'm going to show you that 7-day forecast, the long-term trend where our temperatures go. That's another next cause of concern. We are very cold after this event, especially for those who may lose power. Okay, Majestic, you had a rough end to the 6 o'clock as far as accidents go. How's it looking now?
It's looking a little bit better, but still pretty busy. This is going to be I-85 here, mile marker 40 out near Graham, 7:36 right now. So, of course, we're starting to see more traffic as people are waking up, starting their day, getting those kids up and ready for the school day. Still a handful of ongoing crashes as we're looking at my live traffic map. We have our typical delays, but then we also have a few other issues. This one here south of Uptown, Elena's blocked because of a crash. South Boulevard, both directions being impacted at Sweden Road. This was a picture that I got in from, earlier. It was from a little bit earlier. You can tell it's still dark, but the crash happened right here in the intersection, so delays coming in all directions. Drive times right now, if you're heading out the door, not too bad, about 24 minutes coming in from Matthews, 26 out in Belmont. And then the final thing that I want to let you know about is this crash here. This is going to be just south of Matthews, right near Indian Trail. You can see it showing in red. This is going to be on Independence Boulevard, eastbound at Unionville Indian Trail Road. We'll have more details on this one coming up soon.
All right, thanks so much, Majestic. This morning, NCDOT officials continue to treat roads across our area with more than 300,000 gallons of brine already on the roads. WCNC Charlotte's Destiny Richards is live along I-45 in Northwest Charlotte with a closer look at how crews are preparing for that ice expected to impact roads across our area. Good morning, Destiny.
Good morning. Driving around the past couple of days, you may have noticed those chalky white lines on the roads. That is the work of NCDOT and CDOT ahead of this storm. They've already been treating the roads, and right now conditions are calm. We have no weather impacts as of this morning, but transportation officials say this is the window to prepare before the wintry precip moves in. So they are at work. Crews across the Charlotte area are pre-treating roads, bridges, and interstates using brine to try to prevent ice from bonding to the pavement. Officials say ice is the biggest threat, more dangerous than snow, and could quickly turn roadways slick. NCDOT says they'll shift to 24-hour operations once the weather arrives, monitoring road temperatures, precipitation, and ice accumulation in real time. If freezing rain becomes a major issue, crews will move from liquid brine to solid salt, prioritizing interstates, major roadways, and high-volume secondary routes. Crews with NCDOT and Highway Patrol say they'll be out monitoring conditions.
Right now, our plan is to come in Saturday morning at 7. We'll work 12-hour shifts, and we'll have another crew come in at 7 that night and work till 7 the next morning.
If you come across where you're stuck or having a vehicle emergency, you can dial 911, of course, for emergency, and dial star 47, which is star HP, our comm centers. Our comm centers are manned 24/7.
And I've been checking NCDOT socials this morning. No new communication from them other than they're continuing to pre-treat as many roads as they can. Again, mainly those main roads and secondary routes. But again, if you don't have to go out, please don't. And if you see crews out there, give them plenty of space. They're suggesting about 100 to 200 feet if you are on the roads. And Chris has talked about this, and he can, elaborate on this. But it's really that first layer that it'll protect against. But after that, once the ice and sleet start accumulating even more, that's when it's really going to be messy out there, even with the pre-treated roads. So really stay safe. If you absolutely have to be out there, you can go to NCDOT's website to monitor conditions and see their real-time map. I'll send it back to you guys in studio live here from Northwest Charlotte.
Destiny, thanks so much for that. That's the message in both North and South Carolina. In fact, work is already underway in South Carolina to get the roads ready. We're going to show you some video. You can see the roads being treated. This is I-77 near Fort Mill, where they were treating the highway. Our team spoke with South Carolina Highway Patrol on WCNC Live Impact News, and they are urging everyone, as you heard, to stay off the roads this weekend. But if you must drive, they say, here are a few tips on what you should do in case you lose control of your car.
And we ask that drivers not slam on brakes. When they slam on brakes, it locks the wheels, obviously, and sends them out of control. So we just ask if you do hit ice, just lightly tap the brakes and take control of the steering wheel. Don't overcorrect. I know the first thing that we think to do is jerk the steering wheel and slam on brakes, and that's actually the wrong thing to do. So as soon as you hit that ice, just lightly tap the brakes and get control of the steering wheel.
South Carolina's National Guard is also preparing for the winter storm. Members are being placed on active duty. State leaders say recovery teams are gearing up to help those who may get stuck on the road.
And when we return, we take a look at how this incoming winter storm is affecting regions all over the U.S. Stay tuned.
Approaching 7:44 now. This huge winter storm is closing in on the U.S.
The footprint is set to hit more than half of the country with a potentially historic blast of ice and snow.
Half the country's population is going to see some sort of winter weather impacts.
Some areas in the storm's path already dealing with crippling conditions. It all starts Friday in the plains, where the storm's massive pool of moist air begins to clash with Arctic air. Bone-chilling temperatures pushing the storm eastward.
We have about 70,000 tons of salt ready to go and our 275 plows.
Major cities in the Northeast could get their largest snowfall in at least 4 years. That includes New York, where officials are mounting a massive battle plan to prepare all 5 boroughs. Southern states are bracing for destructive ice from freezing rain, the storm's most serious threat, one that could cause extended power outages.
It's just entirely premature for them to be able to know how many people will lose power.
Ice could also make roads very hazardous.
Latest forecasts show a widespread event that's likely to spread ice throughout the state of North Carolina.
Air travel will also likely be impacted. Airlines including American, Delta, Southwest, and United have put out travel advisories and are letting customers rebook or cancel travel scheduled over the next several days. I'm Reed Binion reporting.
The major winter blast expected to affect millions of people over the next few days is saving jobs, at least for the time being. The Federal Emergency Management Agency is halting the layoffs of disaster workers for those whose contracts were set to expire soon. No word on how long it will be before the dismissals will resume. Sources say about 300 disaster workers were let go this month.
From the plains to the East Coast, the winter weekend storm is also causing natural gas prices to skyrocket. According to data from FactSet, contracts for near-term U.S. natural gas futures have jumped more than 70% so far this week. Bloomberg reporting that increase means natural gas is tracking to see its biggest weekly jump since 1990. The extreme cold is not only driving up demand, it could also disrupt gas flow through pipelines and deplete the stockpiles. The demand could also derail production at key hubs across the country.
So I'm up here answering your questions. The most recent question that you had asked, when is it going to be safe to drive again? I think Monday is the day of cleanup. It really depends on how many tree limbs are going to fall. It's also going to be super icy at that point, but once we get more sunshine, soften things up, really treat a lot of the roads with some of that salt. I think Tuesday gets a little bit better, certainly by Wednesday, but even Monday I would really take off the table for travel. But Majestic and I are going to answer a lot more of your winter weather questions, what you need to know ahead of this historic storm.
At the Story Sprinkle, it's Friday. The big question, what to do today, and the weekend's kind of iffy, but what I'm talking about goes all the way into February. We are talking about the world famous Queen's Feast, which starts today and goes all the way through the 1st of February. Multi-course fine dining, over 120 participating restaurants across 9 counties in this area. Literally something for everyone on the menus. 3-course or more meals from $30 to $55. Something that is delicious. The Queen's Feast going on now through the 1st of February. Log on to CharlotteRestaurantWeek.com for all the information. That's what's happening. I'm Larry Sprinkle.
All right, we have the power of 2. So throughout the show, we're going to answer people's questions.
Yes.
Likely you have questions as well, so we'll show you how to send those in. But okay, so number 1, the question was, will there be power outages for a long time? I'll let you take this first.
I think really this is what we've been preparing people for, is the potential of power outages. Can we say specifically how long it's actually going to be? Of course not, but because ice is the #1 concern in the forecast and it's so prolonged that we could accumulate that ice, and with it being so thick, I mean, ice is going to bring down trees, power lines, and like we always mention, it doesn't take that much. So I think in this scenario, are we going to be without it for a long time? I don't think we can specifically say for sure, but I think it's really just planning and preparing for that, because an ice storm like this is a direct correlation and result to those power lines and trees going down, and just a lot of people being without power.
And luckily at this point we can tell that, hey, it's mainly going to be sleet that happens through the overnight, so we can say that you are likely still with power when you wake up on Sunday morning. There might be a few isolated cases, but then once you get this area of pink, that's going to be the freezing rain. At that point, it is actually very heavy, Majestic. So I think it's going to be quickly sticking to a lot of those trees, bringing down tree limbs, and then that's really going to bring down the weight of some of those power lines as well. So yeah, like you said, the 2002 event, power was out 1 to 2 weeks in some areas.
Ugh.
So I think that you're talking about hours to days if we get up to that ½ inch of ice.
And I think something with freezing rain too is that people look outside their window, they're like, well, it's done and over with, it's just rain coming down now. And that's the deceiving part. This is not just normal rain, this is freezing rain. I mean, our air temperature is surely cold enough. The ground temperature though is also really cold. So all that rain, quote unquote rain, that's going to be coming down, it just instantly freezes on everything. So anything that you have outside. outside is going to get frozen over with it. And it doesn't take a lot. That's the thing.
And even if you get like a little technical rain that's not freezing rain, well, guess what? It's immediately going to be freezing after that. So then you have those icicles that are just going to weigh things down even more. So yeah, starting in the morning, the afternoon, it's going to pick up. And I think really hours to days, I think the maximum would be over a week in the extreme circumstances. All right, the next question was, do you believe we could get thunder during this ice storm? We'll say it together. 1, 2, 3.
No.
All right, so plain and simple is you need some sort of instability, and it's usually when you have a warmer surface and a colder temperature aloft, you get that instability. And first off, it's called thunder snow. We don't even have the snow.
Exactly. Not a lot of it, that's for sure.
So at this point, we're not going to really have the right setup. That's where it's going to be more of this type of setup, that it's actually colder at the surface and warmer above. So that is a big no. All right, Jessica.
Thunder snow is cool, though.
Oh, I've actually never heard it.
Okay, I have.
You have?
When I was in Arkansas, and it was more of a warm air mass, cold air mass coming together, and then boom.
Yeah, I only have seen Jim Cantori get very excited about it. All right.
Okay, next question. Is there still a chance that the cold air pushes down south and turns everything to snow?
That's going to be another no. Actually, I'll bring up this other graphic. It's not about the cold air. We have the cold air. The problem is it's so shallow. So that's why we still have a ribbon of the warmer air above us. And that's why this is more of a sleet event. So I think we could see snow. We were mentioning that that's the big change, Majestic, is that at least
we
snow
like that.
levels. Yeah, so here, this is the best part of the forecast. Ooh, it's snowing.
Yay.
Maybe I can get a quick little snowball off my car, and then, oh, here comes the sleet.
Yeah. And it seems like most of the snow, again, north of Charlotte. I think in Charlotte, could we get some snow? Sure, maybe a little bit. Enough to, get you excited. But most of that north of us.
Yeah,
not looking great.
I think the problem is, too, Majestic, is that we actually have this area that looks like really heavy snow. I think a lot of sleet's mixing with that as well. So if you live north of I-40, you have a better chance for a long-lasting snow. But that's one thing. At least this weather system is throwing you a little bit of a snow event briefly. But that's why I was telling people yesterday, maybe you could see snow, but it's more of a sleet and then followed by freezing rain event, as you mentioned.
And I think it's interesting, too, since being here or in the South in general, usually we're missing something, whether it's a cold air, whether it's some moisture. And this time, it's really like we have both. We have a lot of that cold Arctic air blasting down throughout the South and plenty of moisture, too, coming in from the South. So
and
there we go.
Well, Megan did a great job yesterday where we were talking about the brine versus the ice.
Yeah.
So the next and last question we have is, you asked, when is the best time to apply salts or ice melts? So obviously salt, as we learned from Megan, is after the event. So I think, Majestic, and this is, I think, kind of like up to you. You can maybe wait until the precipitation just stops, but I think that more so maybe Monday morning, would you say, or would you do it as soon as it stops?
I think as soon as it stops, for me personally. That's what I think I would do. But I don't think there's any specific, this is going to be the best time to do it.
Yeah, because it looks like, I think the last precipitation, I think, ends early evening on Sunday. So if you see for sure, you can check on our wonderful WCNC app, by the way, if the radar is all clear. And we're also going to give you the all clear as well. We're going to be live streaming on WCNC Plus. So yeah, no, I'm going to have to double that up. I think that if we can get out there, get the salt, have it work overnight. If not, as soon as you wake up in the morning, get it active. And I don't think a lot of people are going to be traveling on Monday anyway.
No, hopefully not. So if people, accumulate 1 to 3 inches of sleet, I think that they should get out and try to remove that as soon as you can, because all of it's just going to be frozen over. It's better to just at least have a little bit of ice compared to the 2 or 3 inches of sleet and then the freezing rain on top of it.
Yeah, and I say this usually during these events. Now, it might get frozen to the ground in this case, but if you can put a tarp over your car, sometimes you can put it on your stairway and stuff like that, you can be able to lift that up much easier than actually trying to chisel it.
That's a good idea. You got an extra tarp?
No, and we tried to get one yesterday and they are sold out.
Not surprisingly.
Hopefully you have one in general. Again, Majestic and I are going to be answering your questions all through WCNC Plus. Do we have that number? I don't have it memorized by any chance, what people can message in. Well, anyways,
we'll get it to you.
Why don't you message either Majestic or I on our Facebook page, and we'll get to as many as we can throughout the show.
Guys, thanks so much for that. We're going to take a quick break, but keep it right here, streaming live on WCNC Plus.
Good morning, everyone. Plain and simple, we are looking for the weekend to see what exactly is going to be going on around town. Well, I'm just letting you know today and tomorrow are your windows of opportunity to get some things done, because as soon as you get to the middle of the afternoon, yes, we have a chance to see a little bit of snow, but I think that snow is starting to mix with sleet pretty immediate, anywhere between about 2 and 6. Then we change things over to mainly a sleet event, so tiny ice pellets accumulating like snow, and then eventually we have freezing rain that takes over, and at that point, I think it's through the morning heading into the afternoon of Sunday that we're going to see a flourishing amount of power outages. So have everything charged up, everything you need to do now through your Saturday. It's really not until Sunday and Sunday afternoon that the freezing rain takes over and things really start to go downhill. This is an event that you do not want to be out in the roads. Take care. Still a deep freeze following that. All right, Majestic, what do people need to know about traffic this morning?
Good morning, everyone. Following a handful of ongoing wrecks for that Friday morning commute, we have our typical delays, but one important thing to let you know about is going to be right here. This is going to be out near Indian Trail. This is where we do have a ton of red. It's actually those outbound lanes where we do have some lanes closed down because of a crash. Independence both ways there at Unionville Indian Trail. We'll have more coming up.
Oh my gosh, I almost said Thursday.
It's
we were
Friday.
talking about how it doesn't feel like this. Thank you for joining us on WCNC Plus at 8 o'clock. I'm Megan Bragg, in for Ben.
And I'm Lisa Washington. We're going to start things off this half hour with a check on your forecast. Chris and Majestic both have been working really hard tracking this system and explaining the precipitation that we are expecting.
I just want to be transparent. When we started the week, I have to say this is probably the earliest that I can say in my Charlotte career, at least, that I've talked about an event this early and things didn't necessarily change that drastically. We were calling on Monday, oh wow, stay weather alert for what could be potentially happening this weekend. Then we said, oh wow, this looks like a big time ice event. There's not as much snow. Wow, this could be historic. Now there's more sleet. Now you have everything aligning that every box is checked. You're gonna have sleet. You're gonna have widespread freezing rain, an ice event. This could be historic, that a lot of people on the internet saying, it's gonna be just rain. They're overreacting again. This is one time, I'm going to say one time, that please overlook all of that, because this is going to be a serious storm, and you could be rolling your eyes, but if you watch WCNC Plus, I know that you trust us, but I'm trying to do as much as I can over the next 24 to 36 hours to reach out to everyone that lives in this area to try to get them not to drive on Sunday and challenge what the road conditions are. But mainly, I want people to be prepared, because a lot of us could lose power for not just a couple hours, but maybe even days. So I want you to be prepared about that. And a lot of people were saying, oh, well, all the water's sold out. Well, guess what? Some people are on well water. Like myself, when we lose power, we have no water flowing through our house. So we have to be prepared. So if you are a person that was a doubter, I am here to say, please, at very worst, just be prepared. Because the best case scenario I have for you is that we have less than an inch of sleet and then freezing rain on top of that. That's still ice across the entirety of the area. And when we just get a little bit of snow, it's pandemonium. So here's your timing. You need to know that by your Saturday afternoon, I want you to be done with everything. Some people are going to challenge it. Some people have things to do during Saturday. Some people want to go to church on Saturday, late afternoon to the evening, just because there's not going to be a lot of services on Sunday. Well, I'm letting you know that through your Saturday afternoon, things are coming. We're looking at some light snow and some sleet, but I think the brine on the roads are going to be okay. Once you get to Saturday evening, and I'm really calling after 4 to 6, things I think are going to go downhill in a real hurry. Once the sun sets, once it's dark, I think it's a kind of a good thing. Now you're kind of playing with fire, more playing with ice, because we have mainly sleet taking over at that point and a snow sleet north, and I'll show you what that looks like. And then Sunday morning, sleet changes to freezing rain. By Sunday, people shouldn't be driving, because if you are living or driving or planning on driving down a hill, you could see it sliding sideways, as you typically see for winter events, especially to the north. So today is the day, the last day to prepare. I've been telling people here on WCNC Plus now for 3 days, you got to get out there, because so much stuff is already sold out because people are like, oh no, this is coming. So if you're that person, there's still time. There's still things out there. If you need to go grocery shopping, I highly recommend some proteins like some tuna, and also maybe get some charcoal. If you can get some charcoal, you can still be able to cook outside. Make sure that that grill is going to be covered up, because temperatures will get a little bit warmer, but not right away. Because I think if we're going to lose power, we're going to lose it on Sunday. Saturday is kind of the transition day. We start to see a same on Saturday night, where you're going to potentially see some of that sleet eventually changing over to freezing rain. So how much sleet? About 1 to 3 inches. Sleet and snow, it could be anywhere from about 3 to 5, and that's mainly just outside of our area. So about Wilkesboro, North Wilkesboro, over to Boone, some of our mountains, and more so, I think, up in Ashe County. You're going to see more snow than anyone. Most of us are going to be seeing some frozen snow pellets, because literally sleet is just where a partially melted snowflake that re-solidifies into an ice pellet. But here's the big cause of concern. This is what's going to knock power out. Sleet is terrible for the roads. Freezing rain is absolutely atrocious for what's above, the tree branches, and maybe even some decayed tree branches will come down on those power lines. And then in general, if this comes to fruition, up to a ½ inch of ice, you could have widespread power outages across the area, because they don't like it when it gets that heavy. Even a ½ inch of ice is a possibility for that. So we'll have sporadic power outages minimum. We could have widespread power outages lasting for days at the maximum. The nearest futurecast is showing that already by 7 a.m. on Sunday, we could have up to a 1/10 of an inch of ice. At that point, you're not driving on that regardless of the sleet. But the worst part is that freezing rain's on top of the sleet. So that freezing rain's going to find some of the grooves. So it's going to solidify that into a brick of things. So Majestic suggested this earlier. If maybe there's like a transition, if you start hearing and then eventually it's going to change over to shh, like it's raining, maybe you want to try to get that sleet out of the way before it's going to solidify, or it might be already too late. High temperatures today right around 50 degrees, because those clouds, slight chance for rain heading into the morning. Once you get to the middle of the afternoon on Saturday, we're looking at a much better chance for sleet and snow. So again, stay off the roads by the evening. Here's that changeover. Sleet through the overnight to begin your Sunday, and then freezing rain is here by right around sunrise. We're still going to have some lingering sleet accumulations, Lincoln to Statesville over to Hickory, before you see all freezing rain later on your Sunday. And at this point, each hour we're seeing more and more power outages. It just depends on how heavy it's going to be. But this is representing a very heavy freezing rain with temperatures in the 20s. Eventually, it starts to be just rain before it could change back over and refreeze. Not a good situation. So I'm going to repeat myself. Get everything done now and tomorrow morning, and be safe. Stay home. Take care. All right, let's see how things are looking for the start of the last day of preps with Majestic.
Good morning, everyone. Another big crash to let you know about. This is on I-485, again, out near mile marker 25. That's out near Brown. You can see lots of emergency responders are here on scene. We have multiple lanes that are currently blocked off. Cars are able to move, but moving very, very slowly at that. Let me show you what I'm talking about as we're looking at my map. So again, this is going to be north of Uptown. This has been really a bad spot this morning. morning. It's an accident that just was reported, an accident and a vehicle fire. The fire is out at this point. At least 2 lanes, the left lane's currently blocked. I-485, the inner loop right there, Prosperity Church Road, exit 26, nearing Benfield Road. This is exactly where it is. So you can see all the delays right there. Again, this is going to be the inner loop of I-485 where we are following a big accident right there. Stay close to our team. We'll keep you up to date on this big accident happening now.
Majestic, thanks for that update. Right now, the Carolinas bracing for one of the biggest winter storms it's seen in decades.
Governor Josh Stein speaking to all of North Carolina, declaring a state of emergency and urging everyone to take the threat of this weekend's winter storm very seriously.
At this time, our greatest concerns are potential power outages and road safety over the coming days. Ice accumulation may lead to power outages, and we recommend everyone keep their devices charged, have a flashlight and battery-operated radio on hand, and think about what you may need to stay warm and fed if you lose power.
And we continue to urge folks in the area to stay off the roads this weekend. However, we know that situations happen that may require you to get behind the wheel.
So before things get too hectic, WCNC Charlotte's Richard Devane joins us live this morning. He's in Northwest Charlotte to share how you can prepare ahead of the storm. Richard.
Yeah, Lisa, good morning to you. Good morning, Megan. Good Friday morning, Plusers. Basically, we don't want you on the roads, especially as Saturday gets into afternoon, so it's a little bit more than a day away. You folks need to know what you need to do to keep yourself and your car, more importantly, winterized as this storm approaches. You know, a couple things you need to know. First of all, mechanics are recommending checking your battery first, since cold weather can cause weak batteries to fail without warning. You could get stranded out there. Tire safety is also critical. If you have to go on the roads, make sure tires are properly inflated and have enough tread to maintain traction as these roads get slicker and slicker. Worn tires can increase the risk of sliding and losing control. Now, drivers should also check antifreeze level. We learned from a couple mechanics that windshield wipers and washer fluids designed for freezing temperatures. That means those fluids that have that antifreeze in them are important, not just the water antifreeze mixture, but pure antifreeze mixture is really good. Keep at least a half a tank of gas. Now, they say half a tank. We're saying if you can fill up the car, keep it full, because in a serious emergency without power in your house, you may have to use your car for heat and also a way to charge your phones, or if you get stranded, Lord forbid, on the side of the roads. Now, emergency kits, important, blankets, batteries, things like that, non-perishable snacks. You just need to take a few minutes now to winterize your car, and that can help keep you safe as the weather really turns dangerous.
Cars in general just don't like cold temperatures. Anytime temperatures drop really low like that, water pumps, radiators, radiator hoses, things of that nature are gonna leak and gonna break. Anything that can potentially be more fragile when it's cold outside or more brittle when it's cold outside is definitely gonna be that way in colder temperatures.
See, the tire pressure lights on the dash, sometimes people ignore those and think, okay, there's not really a problem, but there really is. So you're going down the road and you're having a tire issue, you'll end up on the side of the road. So definitely don't ignore those tire inflation warnings.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I had to check my tire warnings just earlier this week. So it's important to keep your car winterized and just be safe in the sheer case that you have to go out there in an emergency situation. Best advice is stay off the roads, but if you have to, please, please be very safe. We're right here in Northwest Charlotte. Richard Devane, we'll send it back to you.
All right, Richard, good advice. Thank you for that. If you're planning on using public transit this weekend, listen up. CATS Gold Line service is suspended Saturday and Sunday. CATS says all other operations will continue as normal as long as conditions allow. The transit system is monitoring the weather and urges riders to stay informed. For updates, you can download the CATS Pass app for alerts and detours. And remember, be careful boarding and exiting buses during icy conditions.
Right now, we are not seeing many flights impacted. At last check, there were 9 cancellations and 5 delays at Charlotte Douglas. But do keep an eye out for your flight status. Thursday, Charlotte Douglas had 1 cancellation and 132 delays. For those looking to escape the cold, the winter storm will create major impacts for Charlotte Douglas as well as other airports across the country. Take a look at this map. It shows just how widespread those disruptions will be. You can see dozens of airports where American Airlines is issuing travel alerts from New Mexico to Washington, D.C. And to help passengers, American is waiving the fees to change your flight. If you're booked in Basic Economy, you can only choose from the Basic Economy inventory, not from another class. Canceled and delayed flights may qualify for a refund.
For the second year in a row, an unhoused person was found dead during the annual Mecklenburg County point-in-time count, the federally required annual count of the unhoused population. Officials say while the number of people experiencing homelessness is growing, affordable housing isn't. And now this weekend's storm shows the need for federal funding for shelter space. But for now, they're depending on city donations to help.
Once this storm hits, a sleeping bag is almost like a piece of paper towel because when it rains, that sleeping bag isn't good anymore. So they need more. Most people can't afford market rate rent. Most people don't make 3 times the cost of rent, so they're unable to maintain their housing.
Organizations like Block Love, Roof Above, and Hearts for the Invisible are all taking donations. Each group is requesting blankets, sleeping bags, gloves, socks, and thermal underwear. Topping the list, do check with each group's Amazon wish list or social media pages for a full look at how to help. A federal funding review is now targeting more than a dozen Democratic-led states, and the Trump administration wants detailed spending reports on a tight deadline. Find out why.
And now to some breaking news in South Charlotte. Well, we have learned an overnight house fire is now deadly. That fire happened on Raintree Lane near Fairchild Lane. Take a look at some video from the scene. The department says 2 people were taken to the hospital by a medic. We now know that one of those people has died. It is unclear when that fire started. Again, an overnight house fire in Charlotte, now a deadly house fire.
A high-profile visit in Minneapolis by Vice President Vance Thursday in the middle of protests against ICE. Vance blames Democratic officials there for not helping federal law enforcement carry out arrests, while also acknowledging some mistakes. Here's NBC's Maggie Vespa with more from the vice president.
As anti-ICE protests here rage, Vice President Vance on the ground in Minneapolis saying he wants to turn down the temperature and support federal law enforcement officers.
Because of a few very far left agitators, a lot of these guys are unable to do their jobs without being harassed, without being doxxed, and sometimes without being assaulted. That's totally unacceptable.
Earlier today, acknowledging mistakes.
You're always going to have mistakes made in law enforcement. 99% of our police officers, probably more than that, are doing everything right.
We pressed the vice president.
So what do you say to people here in Minnesota who say it's the overwhelming presence of ICE officers and federal officers and their tactics that are making them feel less safe?
Well, one thing I would say is, first of all, we saw in 2025 the biggest one-year drop in murders in the history of the United States of America.
Are you saying that they're not perceiving it correctly.
If you understand this in context, this is the inevitable consequence of a state and local government that have decided that they're not going to cooperate with immigration enforcement at all. In fact, they're going to aggressively not cooperate.
Minneapolis's Democratic mayor responding.
We've got this huge influx of what feels like an occupation.
Critics pointing to this image of a 5-year-old boy with a federal officer on Tuesday. Columbia Heights Public Schools saying Liam Conejo Ramos and his father, Adrian Conejo Arias, were detained in their driveway, accusing ICE of using a 5-year-old as bait.
All I want is for him to be safe and back here.
DHS responding, saying officers did not target a child, but were targeting his father, who's in the U.S. illegally from Ecuador, saying the father fled on foot, abandoning his child, and that, quote, one of our ICE officers remained with the child after his mother refused to accept custody.
What are they supposed to do? Are they supposed to let a 5-year-old child freeze to death? Are they not supposed to arrest an illegal alien in the United States of America?
Meanwhile, this video showing Border Patrol Commander Gregory Bavino tossing gas to disperse protesters who had followed officers to a convenience store, throwing food and objects at them.
We were set up on rioters who tried to stop us at every point yesterday. Where was Minneapolis Police Department during that 8-hour stalking events?
That was Maggie Vespa reporting. Federal funding sent to more than a dozen Democratic-led states is now under review by the Trump administration. A memo from the Office of Management and Budget asks those states to turn over detailed spending information to help reduce fraud and misuse. The memo says the request is for data gathering only and does not mention withholding any money. Most of the states asked to report have Democratic governors, and all voted for Kamala Harris in the 2024 election. All information is due by Monday.
Should we do it? Is it a bad idea? Oh, what? So what happens when this happens? We're going to talk about the science. Is if you put your tongue under a freezing pole, why does that happen? And how do you get free? Coming up after the break. No, don't do it, kid. This is a terrible idea. I don't think he's going to. Double dog dare you? Triple dog dare you? Okay, so my producer, Callie, brought this up. She's like, let's talk about the science of when you do this. Have I done it before? Of course I have. Not in my adulthood. Not in my adulthood. Heat transfer. So number one, so I know you're using some big old terms. What this means is the metal pole is such a powerful conductor that it instantly sucks the warmth out of your tongue. But there's also something else on there. The tongue is moist. I'm sorry if you don't like that word, but I had to use it. Flash freezing. So we often talk about that for freezing rain. Same thing's kind of happening. So that rapid heat loss actually causes the moisture on your tongue to go into a solid matter within seconds. So what physically happens is, think about how porous your tongue is. Literally, it has a bunch of pores and textures. Well, it almost acts as a bond onto the metal. So it almost glues it instantly. So it's a flash freeze that glues you and makes you and the pole as one. Now, this is never a good idea, but it seems like there's one movie that references this. I think we all know what we're talking about. But how do you get free? Well, there's actually two ways that we potentially could do this. Number one, use warm water. Not boiling water, you just pour it over there. It's going to loosen up the bonds, the flash freeze is over, but you can also use your breath. Say if you're by yourself, say if all of a sudden you're like, you know what, I'm gonna try this just like this kid again, don't do it. Well, you can use your breath. What you can do is you can cup your hands around that, and what that's going to do is that is going to loosen the bond as well. That warmer air is going to loosen the connection, and then you don't have to tell anyone about it. So, all right, be brave, kid. And now don't do this. This is just not a good idea. We are going to have freezing temperatures. Is it cold enough for this to happen? Absolutely. Are you going to do it? Somebody will. Some playground, some happenings. It's going to happen across the area, but not on Monday, because I don't think kids are going to have recess, because you are looking at quite the event. And I'm not talking about donuts. I didn't lose my marbles, I promise. But what sleet essentially is just little balls of ice, just like these little sprinkle balls that you're seeing there to the left. But freezing rate coats everything, just like you're glazing a Krispy Kreme donut. May it be delicious, it's a treacherous situation in the weather world. So tomorrow, we have sleet. We physically have those sprinkles that I just showed you accumulating on the ground. Those can bounce, it can go everywhere. But then imagine putting the glaze on top of that. If that was already on the donut and then you put the glaze on top of it, guess where those sprinkles are going? Nowhere. So you're talking about those sprinkles or the sleet trapped at the surface because of a layer of ice. But ice, freezing rain that we just mentioned, is treacherous for power lines and branches. That's going to create hazardous roads with downed branches and such. Then also a lot of power outages. So charge those phones, do everything you need that needs power right now through tomorrow morning, through tomorrow, because by Sunday, we're going to see a lot of power outages starting to flourish across the area. Speaking of flourish, accidents have been all over the place. You had one accident on 485, now you have another one.
Another big one. This is on I-485 out near mile marker 25 near Brown. You can see roads, some of those lanes are now starting to become more open. They were blocked off, but traffic is still really quite congested as they're continuing to clear this ongoing wreck. Again, this is going to be I-485 just north of Uptown. You're going to want to keep this in mind as you're heading out the door because we have had significant delays. Let me switch this over to my traffic map, giving you some perspective as to where this is at. This is the same spot where we just had another really big accident not too long ago. So again, north of Uptown, it's going to be right here. It's actually the inner loop of I-485 at Prosperity Church Road. So really between exits 25 to 26, that's where we are seeing those delays. We know that this is a serious accident, a vehicle fire as well, but as you could see, it's really clearing up nicely. I mean, those lanes were blocked. At this point, they're no longer blocked. However, traffic is still really congested at this point, maybe down to, looks like 2 lanes, maybe a couple of those lanes still blocked off over to the right. We'll have another update on this all coming up in just a few minutes, but this is what we're watching for you right now.
Majestic, thanks so much for that. And as we head to break, here are some things to keep in mind when you're driving in the upcoming wintry weather conditions if you must be out. So a few reminders for you. First, plan ahead. Make sure that you properly warm your car and that you remove any excess ice that may be on your car at the time. That, of course, will take you extra time to do so as well. So allow yourself some time there. Remember, smooth is safe. That's the best way. No hard braking, no sharp turns or quick acceleration. You want to just go smoothly and slowly. And remember, again, speed is your biggest enemy when it comes to this type of weather condition. You want to drive slowly. This helps to prevent any accidents or any skidding. Now, if in the event that you find your car is sliding or you're skidding on the roadway, steer through the skid. Take your foot off of the pedal and gently steer your car in the direction that you want to go. Something else to keep in mind, do not put your car on cruise control on those slick roads. It's important that you have full control of your car. Also remember, if anything looks wet, you should treat it like it's ice. All right, 8:25 now. We need to take a quick break. We'll continue to stream live right here on WCNC Plus. We are monitoring the situation on the roads. Majestic is telling us about what's happening on I-485, the inner loop there north of Uptown, as well as the conditions that we are expecting with this winter storm over the weekend. We'll have more coming up live, including an interview with some representatives from Duke Energy. That's coming up at 8:30.
Well, good morning, everybody. Let's get right to it. So we today are looking at a slight chance for rain further down towards the south, but all in all, it's just going to be a cloudy day right around 50 degrees. I'm escalating and moving forward because today and tomorrow morning, you have nothing to worry about. Any last-minute preps. Just letting you know, there's no doubt this is going to happen. It's not going to change over to rain. This is not going to miss us. This is happening. So everyone needs to be prepared. Have what you need because there's a chance some of us could lose power for a prolonged period of time. I'm talking about days in the worst case scenario. We're going to see a sign for snow. Yeah, there's a slight chance for snow mixing with sleet Saturday afternoon. But be off the roads by late afternoon heading into the evening because that freezing rain is on the back burner. The sleet is going to be the first thing that we see. Freezing rain eventually takes over, so just pure ice going into Sunday morning. Stay weather alert and stay safe as it all adds up. All right, Majestic, what's going on for your traffic alert?
Good Friday morning, everyone. We're following this. It's going to be on I-485. It's been very busy this morning and not in the best of ways. This is right around mile marker 2425. This is out near Brown. You can see cars are moving at this point, which is some progress as to what we just saw not too long ago, but it is definitely slow. If you're heading out the door anytime soon, this is the inner loop of I-485 around exit 26.
Thanks for streaming live at 8:30 on this Friday morning. I'm Lisa Washington.
And I'm Megan Bragg in for Ben Thompson. Let's get right over to meteorologist Chris Mulcahy. He's been tracking this winter storm. I mean, since Monday. Chris, you've just been super busy.
Super busy, and it's only just begun because we're now actually finally seeing where the storm energy is coming from. So we've been calling this because you've had some epic cold air filtering in from the north and what looked to be a string of moisture that's blasting into that colder air pretty much all the way from Texas up through North Carolina up into Virginia. And this is also creating a ton of snow off towards the north. Millions upon millions of people are affected by this. And I think millions of people are going to be without power. I think it's over, I forget the exact number that we were saying, how many in the millions are actually going to be affected by this across the United States. But it all starts winter-wise here in Texas. So starting with the current time, we see our first signs of freezing rain starting to develop anywhere from San Angelo to Lubbock, Texas to right here around Dallas. Dallas is so close on the cusp. Dallas is either going to get a ton of ice and sleet or mainly just rain. That's how close they're going to be. I think it's more so going to be the sleet profile, following a lot of some of my Dallas and Austin friends. Austin more on the rain side of things. And that's how close this is going to be. But meanwhile, to the north, it's about 100 miles north of a low pressure system, by the way, during these winter events that has the heaviest snow. It's usually right here north of that rain snow line. But that rain snow line is so thick because of where the winds are coming from, the cold air in place on this coming Saturday, that we're looking at widespread precipitation heading into the evening. And you say precipitation because really anything goes. Mainly snow to sleet to freezing rain is what we're dealing with, and that snow is going to be very short-lived, so I didn't want to get people too excited. There's a little surge of warm air. We were looking at that as a potential, but guess what? It's not going to move in right away. There's a chance that we have a changeover to rain, but I don't really actually like this because this is just pure rain, which is heavier, and then it could freeze over more heading into your Monday, which makes Monday more hazardous. Let's slow it down. I'm going to show you hour by hour what we can expect. The rain that we're dealing with right now south of I-85 is barely hitting the surface, so mainly a sprinkle or maybe a mist setting on your windshield wipers. If you live north of Charlotte, you have a better chance of seeing sunshine today, but like yesterday, might see a bright spot here and there. Nothing to worry about. Get everything you need last minute. If you have not gone to the grocery store yet or need any last minute shopping, it is going to be pandemonium. You need to give yourself extra time. I guarantee those parking lots are going to be full. And already a lot of the shelves are quite empty from the bread, from the water, and then milk. I'm going to leave you with this suggestion. I love to do this in this case scenario. Have a cooler, have it sitting outside already, let it cool down, and then you don't want to cover it in ice, of course, but if you can put it under some sort of covering, and then literally, if you don't have ice, you can go and grab the ice that's going to be on the ground, and you can put some stuff outside if need be, if you do lose power. By the way, if you are going to lose power, I think it's going to be Sunday. Saturday, I think it would be really a spontaneous branch that drops on and maybe some power lines, and then you have some isolated outages. I think these become a lot more widespread and a better possibility once you get into your Sunday morning into the afternoon, because that's where you have freezing rain. That's really what the big limitation is and the biggest hazard as far as power lines are concerned. But for our future cast, we see our first signs of snow in the North Carolina mountains. North Wilkesboro, Jefferson could see a dusting of snow briefly. And then here we go. By the Saturday morning time frame, if you are all done and at home, enjoy yourself, because through the afternoon, we are looking at some changes. I'm stopping right here at 5 o'clock. I think at this point, anywhere between about 2 and 6 o'clock, we're going to see snow. We're going to see sleet mixing together, so there's a chance that you see snowflakes. So a lot of people were asking me yesterday, when I was out and about, people were coming out to me and saying, hey, Chris, so what are you thinking? I said, snow lovers, you have this opportunity middle of the afternoon to see a couple of bursts of snow before sleet takes over. And even this right here, I think, is more of a sleet and snow mix, which, by the way, sleet is literally just balls of ice. The best way to put it is just going to be tiny pieces of ice that have already frozen hitting the ground, compared to freezing rain, where liquid water freezes on contact. Quick little flash freeze. The sleet event is mainly during your Saturday evening and overnight, but then watch. We have a big replacement for a change in the upper atmosphere, where you're no longer going to hear the tap, tap, tap of the sleet. You're going to hear the pouring down of rain. And I think rain is light at first, still some pretty heavy sleet right here, right around sunrise, northwest of Charlotte, but eventually through the morning, hour by hour, temperature still in the mid to the upper 20s. We're talking about all freezing rain. That's especially freezing on contact in many of the trees above our heads, taking down some tree limbs through the morning. Luckily, the winds are going to be calm. That's the best thing that we have going on here, and it's going to attach to the power lines. So if we're going to lose power, it's going to be Sunday, especially heading into the afternoon. That's where you have the last surge. Now, the one thing that's good here is, since this is a limiting process because it releases heat in the atmosphere, we see freezing rain start to end by the mid to late afternoon. It could be just rain, but the problem is that could refreeze, and then we're officially done by the late evening. Once you know, you can maybe bring up your WCNC weather app, follow the radar, however you do it. Once you know that that's done, I put down the salt, and you can try to soften some of the ice. As of right now, cover the car with a tarp if you can, your stairs, anything you want to, bring it inside, because everything could be covered in ice mixing with sleet, changing over to freezing rain. Not a good setup. This will be one of the most historic ice events that we've had in Charlotte history and in North Carolina. So please take it seriously, and today is your last full day to prepare. Okay. Traffic hasn't been great for people that need to go out and do this. Let's see with Majestic what's going on now.
Still following this big crash is on I-45 right near Brown Street. So you can see it right there. Two of the lanes on the right-hand side have been blocked off. You can see cars are moving a little bit better at this point. However, still seeing a lot of congestion here. I want to show you my map, just kind of putting it into perspective. I-45, this is the inner loop north of Uptown. Two lanes blocked because of the crash. It's right before before Benfield Road, so this will be the one that you need to really be mindful of as you're heading out the door. Again, looking much better than it was just about 10 minutes ago, but I would expect some delays. It looks like cars are now able to get off at that exit, so that's some good news. Once we're heading down to the south, just south of Matthews, this is going to be out towards Indian Trail. A crash right there on Independence at Unionville Indian Trail Road. That's where we do have some delays right there. Keep this one in mind as well. We'll have another check on those roads coming up soon.
Majestic, thanks for that. Now to some breaking news in South Charlotte, where we have learned that an overnight house fire, we've been telling you about this morning, we've now learned it's deadly. That fire happened at a home on Raintree Lane near Fairchild Lane. Take a look at some video from the scene overnight. The fire department is saying 2 people were taken to the hospital by a medic. We've now learned that one of those people has died. It is not clear right now what started that fire.
This morning, NCDOT officials continue to treat roads across our area with more than 300,000 gallons of brine already on the roads. WCNC Charlotte's Destiny Richards is live along I-45 in Northwest Charlotte with a closer look at how crews are preparing for that ice expected to impact roads across our area.
Yeah, we've already been seeing the evidence of NCDOT and CDOT crews working. Maybe you've driven around and seen those chalky lines on the road. Well, it's on roads like I-45 here onto W.T. Harris Boulevard that you'll really see treated. That's already started to be treated ahead of this storm. Conditions are calm right now across our area, but crews will be monitoring this, and they say this is the window that they'll be preparing before the wintry precip moves in. Now, crews across the Charlotte area are treating roads, bridges, and interstates using brine to try to prevent ice from bonding to the pavement. Officials say ice is the biggest threat, more dangerous than snow, and could quickly turn roadways slick. NCDOT says they'll shift to 24-hour operations once the winter weather arrives, monitoring road temperatures, precipitation, and ice accumulation in real time. If freezing rain becomes a major issue, crews will move from liquid brine to solid salt, prioritizing interstates, major roadways, and high-volume secondary routes. Crews with NCDOT and Highway Patrol say they'll be out monitoring those conditions.
Right now, our plan is to come in Saturday morning at 7. We'll work 12-hour shifts, and we'll have another crew come in at 7 that night and work till 7 the next morning.
If you come across where you're stuck or having a vehicle emergency, you can dial 911, of course, for emergency, and dial star 47, which is star HP, our comm centers. Our comm centers are manned 24/7.
And again, we have been saying if you don't have to be out on the roads this weekend during the winter storm, do not go out. But if you absolutely have to, if you see crews out there working, if you see Highway Patrol, just give them plenty of space. About 100 to 200 feet is what they're recommending. And if you have to go out, you can also monitor conditions, monitor the work that they're doing on the NCDOT website, and you can follow their live map in real time. Live this morning in Northwest Charlotte, I'm Destiny Richards, WCNC Charlotte.
Destiny, thanks so much for that. Work is already underway in South Carolina to get the roads ready. Take a look at this video. The roads were being treated on I-77. This was near Fort Mill yesterday. They were out preparing those roads. Our team spoke with South Carolina's Highway Patrol right here on WCNC Plus in our live Impact News. And they're urging everyone, as you heard, to stay off the roads this weekend. But if you must drive, here are some tips on what to do if you lose control of your car.
And we ask that drivers not slam on brakes. When they slam on brakes, it locks the wheels, obviously, and sends them out of control. So we just ask if you do hit ice, just lightly tap the brakes and take control of the steering wheel. Don't overcorrect. I know the first thing that we think to do is jerk the steering wheel and slam on brakes, and that's actually the wrong thing to do. So as soon as you hit that ice, just lightly tap the brakes and get control of the steering wheel.
South Carolina's National Guard also preparing for the winter storm. Members are being placed on active duty. State leaders say recovery teams are gearing up to help those who may get stuck on the road.
As Union County braces for a winter storm this weekend, some stores have been seeing a run on essentials.
In Waxhaw, one hardware store telling us they've already sold out of salt and ice melt. WCNC Charlotte's Miles Harris shows us how people are getting ready.
County officials say that the biggest message here is preparation, but there are some stores in this area that are already short on supplies when it comes to essentials this weekend.
Every time there's a big storm, everybody comes running in for ice melt, generators.
At Ace Hardware in Waxhaw, employees say they've seen a steady stream of customers all week, and they've already sold out of salt and ice melter. But they're working quickly to restock, hoping to keep up with the demand.
Not yet, sir. We're hoping to have some this afternoon if you want to.
We filled 800 gallons worth of propane yesterday, and we're waiting for the truck to come back today.
People who live here tell us that they're not taking any chances, stocking up early with what they can to make sure that they have what they need.
I always made sure I had stuff on the shelf, backup batteries, water, food, long-term food, general items that you need. Tuna meals, just basic stuff. So this could be, devastating to power. So I want to make sure the power needs are taken care of. Click this on, so now this is powering the DC.
Ace Hardware owner Lauren Schaefer says that he plans to stay open with normal store hours to help provide essential supplies.
As long as I can get to the store, we'll stay open. We may have a skeleton staff, but we'll try to stay open and serve the community as long as we can.
And people across the county say that they are taking this winter weather seriously, which is why they are taking those precautions and those preparations seriously in case the conditions do turn dangerous. In Union County, I'm Miles Harris, WCNC Charlotte.
A sharp blast of Arctic air is on the way, and staying warm may take more than just turning up the heat. Up next, what you need to know about outages, safety, and how to prepare before temperatures plunge. Welcome back. Time now 8:44 as we brace for the upcoming winter storm. It's important to stay warm and be prepared for outages.
And that's why we have Ben Williamson from Duke Energy to give us some tips. Ben, thanks for your time. Good morning to you. First off, what is the most important thing that you want your customers to know in the event that they do lose power?
Yeah, good morning, and thanks to be with you. We're doing a lot. We're mobilizing right now. We've got about 18,000 crews that'll be coming to the state either here or they'll be arriving today, later tonight, and into the morning. For our customers, the biggest thing to know is that prepare for extended outages, right? The plan, prepare like you're going to be out for multiple days. And that's just essentials. I heard you guys talking about it, right? Batteries, flashlights, water, food, get that stuff ready now. I think I heard Chris talking about it. You still have about a day. Some of those stores might be crowded, but it will be worth it. So prepare for those outages and then help us, right? So if you are a Duke Energy customer, make sure your phone stays charged. You can report outages through our app. You can text 57801, text outage to that number. That will help us as we begin to look at assessment and damage assessment and put our crews in areas that have been hit the hardest. We'll be able to see that and use that as data points to help map. So, the storm will run through. We will begin working as soon as it is safe to do so to get our crews out there. And we've got not only local crews here from Charlotte, but from Indiana, Kentucky. We have a crew from Florida coming up today. So it's all hands on deck to get power back as soon as possible. But we will wait until it's safe to do so.
And, one of the big issues here is that ice and getting on trees falling down. Is there something you would suggest to people who do have a bunch of trees or older trees around their house to prepare for now?
Yeah, I mean, as you mentioned, the quarter of an inch of ice is going to bring down limbs on our lines. If we get a half an inch or more, like some of what we've been seeing as predicted, it'll sag our lines and have impact on our lines. As Duke Energy, we're doing vegetation management as much as we can around some of our major lines, trimming trees and things like that. For folks that have that, any kind of pre-work you can do to trim trees, things like that, that's always beneficial. But again, just do it safely, right? So we are going to have that ice. It is going to weigh down those trees. I think anything you could do proactively to limit that, if it's trimming trees, things like that, will do. And we're doing that as well to try to limit impacts. But we do know this is going to be a significant storm, right? So we're not going to be able to avoid impacts altogether. So that's what we're telling folks right now. You got about 24 hours more to really plan ahead, be ready, and then plan for multiple days being out. And then we'll do as much as we can to get as many people back as quickly as possible.
And Ben, we talked about this earlier in our newscast. We've talked about what you should do before the storm, the ways that you should prepare. But let's talk about when you're in your home and your power is out. Some of your customers are gas customers, right? They go, well, I have a gas fireplace and I have a gas stove, a gas oven. What should they know before they try to use those appliances?
Well, be aware. I mean, a lot of those things take power to run or ignite, right? And so the biggest thing we say is that anybody that's going to be using alternate versions of heat to do it safely, right? You think big picture generators. Everyone knows how to safely use those. Under no circumstances should those come inside the house. They should never come into even a garage. So if you're running those, do that safely. But from a gas standpoint, we don't expect to see nearly the impacts on the electric side. But again, those two are often tied together. I think, for us, it's mostly stay off. Once this hits, stay off the roads if you can. If you see our crews working, let them do their work so that we can do this, get as many people back as safely as possible. And then as long as you've got some of those things like batteries, like water, like food, you should be able to be self-sustained there for a couple of days. And like I said, as soon as it's safe for our crews to get out, we're going to get out in the thousands to get power back on as soon as possible.
All right, great to hear that you have crews, 18,000 coming into that state. So again, once it is safe, we know that the crews will be out there working. Ben Williamson from Duke Energy, thanks so much for your time this morning. We appreciate you joining us.
Yeah, thanks. Stay safe, y'all.
All right. Let's check back in with Chris now. That was some very helpful information there, hearing from the crews that we know are going to be out in the event and the likelihood that many people will be without power this weekend.
And the line that we've been quoting throughout the week is that history doesn't always repeat itself, but it sure does rhyme. And we have 4 different years that I want to go back with my man Larry Sprinkle and talk about 1978, 1996, 2002, and 2016. The worst ice storms and some of the worst winter storms we've had here in the Charlotte area and North Carolina. You're hearing from my man Larry after the break. Okay. Crew's back together.
I know, it's been a while.
All right, so we're doing something special that we want to go back through time because you've experienced all of these and go through the worst storms, specifically some of the worst icing events we've had here in Charlotte.
And we've had our share of those. You know, what's interesting because there used to be more ice storms. I remember as a kid here in the Carolinas, but the one I definitely remember first of all, 1978. I was in radio at the time, having to stay at the radio station 3 days because everything was iced over, a complete shutdown. Up to that point, that was the biggest ice storm of all time, 1978.
And I'm from New England, and we know that as the blizzard of 78.
Yes, exactly. Everywhere else, it was a nightmare, much as this one will be in soon. 1993, real quickly, that was the storm of the century. Started out as an ice storm here, ended with some snow. And then we take it up to 2016. That was a big one right there. That was one that kind of was for the record books, set all kinds of records. Thousands and thousands of people. That power in 2016 shut everything down. Then we advanced the clock up to, did we miss one? Did we miss 1998?
The biggest one is 2002. But
we missed 1998, which was also big right there.
So let's focus right here. So last extreme weather. So this one right here is 2016. This one was a little bit more snow here. Now we did have roughly.
It was actually more sleet.
More sleet? Okay.
Yeah, it was more sleet, And
that actually proves a good point. So there's a good chance that like sleet will oftentimes accumulate just like snow. So that's what we're gonna have initially. So the roads could look like that from place to place, but you're going to put freezing rain on top of it.
You would hope that it would just be sleet. Unfortunately, it's not going to be.
No,
yes, we
not
can
the
deal with that. So that was that 2016 storm, which was monumental. We thought that was big, and then we have to go to 2002. That's the one that I remember most. It was one of those for the record books, and it has been up to this point the biggest of all time. Basically, multiple thousands of people without power. In fact, it did more damage as far as the infrastructure to the power system than Hurricane Hugo did.
Yeah, so there was, and I reached out to NC State, their climate division. They said 1.8 to 2 million people lost power. So that's why it's more power outages now. It is later than Hugo, so the population was exponentially increasing at that point. But here's a fact. This caused $100 million in damage across North Carolina, and you see why. Just look at how many power lines need to be repaired and how many tree limbs came down because there still was some leaves left over that weighed them down
thousands. Now, the monetary damage wasn't as much as a hurricane. It was the electrical damage, the damage to the infrastructure. I want to read a quote here from one of the folks said it was a mishmash of trees and power lines down. That was from one of the Duke Energy folks. I want to quote from one of our former governors, Pat McCrory. He said, remember this 2016, he said, "Don't put on your stupid hat." I think we all should remember that
I
anytime.
Remember you telling me that.
Yeah, don't put it, because we all don't be out on the highways, be safe, and be careful.
Yes, so Sunday's the time not to wear that hat that he just mentioned. Be safe, everybody. As we mentioned, history can sometimes rhyme with some other events, and we are seeing some similarities. Sunday's not going to be a good one, and no matter what you say, it will go down in history as one of the worst that we've had so far. So stay safe.
Lots of prayers.
All right, guys, thanks so much for that.
Good morning, everyone. Today, we have a little bit of rain down towards the south. For the most part, it's just a cloudy day. It's cooler. But letting you know, Sleet and freezing rain is the main name of the game as we head through the weekend. The cause of concern, we could have 1 to 3 inches of sleet across the greater Charlotte area with up to a 1/4 to a 1/2 inch plus of ice on top of that, which is just going to make this just a thing of ice up to 3 inches. That's an awful situation, so do not drive on Sunday if you don't need to, because it can be a treacherous drive. We're also looking at a good chance for widespread power outages, so make sure everything is charged preparing for this event. And then freezing temperatures, still keeping things treacherous heading into your Monday. After that, we don't really see much of a warm up, 14 degrees on Tuesday. All right, Majestic has one last look here at traffic to see what might be slowing you down this morning.
All right, good morning, everyone. We are heading into a busy Friday morning, but I-45 is looking much better than it was not too long ago. It's been very busy. This is out near Mount Holly Road. If you're traveling this direction, this is what it looks like. This is one thing that I want you to know about is that accident on Prosperity Church Road. That one has just been cleared, so we're making some progress there. But again, we do still have a handful of ongoing wrecks. One right here out towards Gastonia. A lane is going to be blocked because of a crash on I-85 southbound right before exit 19. Stay close to WCNC.